We have IGU has a proven history of reliability and resilience. We have been safely and consistently operating in this environment for 25 years, and we plan to continue doing so. We have secured sufficient LNG supply, and through economies of scale, any increased demand will be able to help us either keep our pricing stable or decrease pricing. Natural gas is the cleanest burning fossil fuel. I didn't talk a lot about this in just an interest of time, but I'm sure you all know the problem that we have with the PM 2.5 and being able to reach attainment anytime anybody switches from a dirtier fuel source to natural gas. We just get so much closer to attainment. And IGU is the first utility that sources natural gas from the Cook Inlet to have found a long-term reliable solution with a definitive alternative, and those concerns are not our concerns. That is the main message. If there's one thing that I would like for you to remember out of everything that I've babbled on here, is that as far as natural gas goes, we do not share the concerns that the Cook Inlet does. And that is all I had for you today, unless you have any questions.
Yes, Elena, thank you.
Of course.
Sometimes I send constituents down to your office there near Phillipsfield Road. Is there, some have come back and said they were told that they were too late. Was there a deadline August 15th for them to want to hook up with you guys?
Yes, so after August 15, we no longer guarantee installations this year. And the reasons for that is because permitting, we have that's one of our biggest hurdles is permitting. Sometimes we need permits that take a lot longer. Then we have to make sure we have the manpowers and the materials. And so as winter is coming upon us, we just have to make sure that we're conservative. So everything that we are currently communicating is we're encouraging people to still submit their application. And then what we're doing is we're putting them through an engineering review, which means our engineer is going to look at it to make sure they can get permits. Our project manager is going to look at it. And if they say yes, if they can clear those concerns, then we're still taking applications. But we're just not guaranteeing them as we did before the August 15.
But if not over the fall or winter, whatever we want to call it, if not over that period of time, when would be the next open window that could get a guarantee, starting as early as when?
May.
May, because sometimes
May.
I need to be the shell answer man to tell my constituents what we're doing.
Yeah.
And you know Brent Sheets pretty well.
I do.
May we come and see you about
Absolutely.
our combined heat power plant, because we want to use your product.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay.
You're always welcome.
So we'll make an appointment to see you anytime in the next 10 days. Okay.
Sure.
Good. We will.
We are going to, we're actually going to visit the plant here in the next 10 days, but yeah.
You want to make it when you're out here to visit the plant?
No, I'm saying I'm gone for 1 or 2 of those days,
Okay.
but
I'll check with your office. I see what you mean. Now turn it over to the council or anybody on staff if they have questions for Elena. Mrs. Welch.
Just a quick question. So right now, how many customers do you have in North Pole?
in North Pole, we have 2,400 total. I am gonna guess if I tell you how many in North Pole, probably around 500.
Okay, so the more you get, does it mean that the gas gets cheaper for people that are hooking up?
Yes, it does. It is not specifically in North Pole though. So the more we get, let's say Mayor Welch's combined heat and power plant, or not his specifically, but I just hear you talk a lot about it.
I did.
Adds a significant additional demand on IGU, and maybe GVA hooks up and Fort Wainwright does too, right? And so we'll have these bigger customers. One thing I didn't want to go too deep into the details of our contracts, but we have a minimum volume guarantee for our liquefaction cost. Anything that we purchase above the minimum volume guarantee is about half price. And so when we are able to purchase a lot of more than minimum volume guarantee, then we're able to fight inflation and keep prices stable or potentially lower cost.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, please, Mr. Jacobs.
The longstanding interior problem with the Alaska LNG project, and that is our Constitution says that we are to maximize the development of our natural resources for all Alaskans. But this LNG project bypasses Fairbanks by 30 miles. And if we want to connect into it, we have to pay for that connection. But this pipeline travels almost 800 miles directly to the Anchorage customers. They don't have to pay for a connection of 30 miles. And that's a big problem.
It has always been IGU's position, and we tell it in every room that we get, that especially if there is a state investment into the Alaska LNG, the connection to IGU should be a part of the original project and not an afterthought.
I appreciate that stand and be firm, because we're not second-class Alaskans.
We don't believe so, and we advocate for that every chance we get.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Thank you, Elaine. I will make an appointment to see
I look
you
forward to that.
sometime in the next 10 days.
Sounds good.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mayor.
And Mike, you've got something. He's there.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just would, as the representative for the city of North Pole, for the last couple of years, I would say that the utility has been in good hands with Dan's capable hands running it. However, you will find that we will not miss a beat with Elena running it. She has more than proven herself as she has moved up through the ranks. And I think that you will find that she will be not to slight down a bit, but I think she will more than fill the shoes because she's that good. And Jeff, for your statement about the maximizing, that is a legislature problem, which our interior delegation, having been there, should be fighting tooth and nail that the interior gets the same rights that Anchorage and other parts gets. And that is really an interior delegation problem that they need to step up and fight for.
Should we make that a legislative priority?
Sir, in my opinion, I would put their feet to the fire.
Could we
All of
also also have the Cook Inlet gas subsidy that Anchorage enjoyed for 30 decades? I mean, 3 decades.
Believe me, I fought that fight many years ago, and in some ways we're still fighting it.
Thank you. I
Thank you.
appreciate that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor,
Thank you,
for the
Mike. You
opportunity.
served us so that y'all will know. I appointed him in May of 2019.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Time flies when you're
Yeah, it
having
does.
fun.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you.
Madam Clerk, help keep me on track here. Any council members' questions of the mayor? Seeing none, we'll move to item 8, citizens' comments. Do we have anyone that wants to make comments?
No, we don't.
No, we don't. No one signed up. So citizens' comments are closed. Now we go to our department heads. We'll start off with Mr. Danny Wallace. Danny?
Evening, everyone. I was a little unclear before whether or not are we going to talk about the ballot proposal flyer
We do that when we come up to that.
up to that?
Yeah.
Okay, then
No problem.
I'll skip over that part of my comments. So I'll cover special topics, building and public works. The only special topic I have is that 2 of our 3 summer hires have returned to school. Derek Johnson and Owen Lau have returned, and then Owen left just this weekend. And Tina Rahman will remain with us through the end of September. Again, we had 3 summer hires, one of them as the municipal intern, then 2 as public works laborers. And I'd really like to thank the council and the mayor for supporting those positions. They really have allowed us to surge throughout the summer and to keep the city beautiful, and also do really important projects. We've made a lot of progress this summer because of that extra help. And a lot of it has been behind the scenes. There are a lot of things that went on here, even in City Hall, as far as organizing things, both interior and exterior work. So I do appreciate that. Now for building, August, as expected, continues to be busy construction. We did have at least 11 domiciles completed, 3 homes and an 8-plex in Stone Point Court that were completed during August. And then, as most of you know, Three Bears continues to move forward. They just submitted their utilities plans to the Alaska Department of Environmental Conservation. Stantec is reviewing those plans for the city, although we're very much involved in the review. But Stantec provides important quality control for that effort. For Public Works, summer paving continues this week, and you'll see this in selected spots to include here at City Hall and behind the Hotel North Pole. There was a water main break a couple months ago there, and that addresses that paving requirement. And we anticipate the paving to continue this week, but it should be done this week or next. We did send out our invitation to bid for snow removal. We did receive 3 bids that closed on Friday. And I'll have that prepared for the next council meeting for decision. We don't foresee any issues moving forward, and we'll have a contract. We think we'll have a contract in place by the end of the month. And that is when if we have snow again September 21st, we are still covered by the current person under contract. So we'll have that ready for everyone at the end of the month. Work on the candy cane light poles continue. As most of you know, we are repainting those candy cane light bulbs. We'll have 15 repainted this year, and you'll see those continue to be removed. That continues to move forward, and they'll be reinstalled in the next couple of weeks. And then finally, Public Works continues to focus on brush cutting and tree removal preparation for, and I hate to say the word winter that's coming, but they're working very hard to make sure everything's set for the winter season. For utilities, I talked to Paul Trissel today, and he said nothing significant is going on for utilities, which is actually great news. Although the upcoming ballot propositions, which I'll talk about later, really do get after our 2 most critical areas of risk, which include certainly the PFAS and our aging infrastructure. And then later on, I'll talk about those two propositions and some recommendations for the ballot. And that's really all I have, subject to questions from the council.
Yes. Danny, is it too premature to talk about what we talked in your office regard to where the PFOS is moving to, what the Army Corps of Engineers was here to discuss with us?
And actually, it was the Air Force civil engineer folks. Yes, it was the Air Force. We did in the last couple of weeks. We've had some contact with the Air Force and the individuals that look at the PFAS and PFOA problems for Eielson. I don't think there's any doubt that the Eielson plume is certainly moving towards North Pole. It's sort of premature to talk about exactly where that's at, although as of right now, we are not seeing significant any significant problems beyond the Chena floodplain, but the plume continues to move forward, and we are trying to make preparations. We are trying to increase communication between the Air Force at Eielson, actually, and the person that came up, Kevin Thomas, is actually from Anchorage, but works for the Air Force as an engineer that looks at the overall problem. We're trying to increase communication between the Air Force and North Pole, other folks in the interior on the way forward. There are monitoring wells throughout the city. There's monitoring wells throughout the region that are looking for PFAS contamination, and that will continue. And as those results become available, I'll address those to the council. We have posted on the North Pole website some information from the most recent monitoring, what the Air Force is saying to individuals about what to do if they're concerned about PFAS and PFOA. So we're at the beginning stages of this. Again, the propositions help us get towards preparedness for these types of things. But again, we're still trying to plan ahead for some of the things that we know are coming.
Thank you, Danny. Anyone else? Mrs. Welch, yes.
Just curious, because I know somebody's going to say something about this when you talk to them out there. How is our well in that respect? Is it deep enough that most likely it's going to be more surface and lower or higher levels of that. Our well is pretty far down, isn't it?
Right. And again, in the last year, I've learned a lot about wells and the depth of wells that matter. Right now, our well is between 180 to 200 feet deep, depending on which one you're talking about. Those wells are deep enough right now that they don't think that they're an issue. But especially in that meeting with the Air Force, we recognize that those have to be monitored, and we have to watch for that because they're not sure right now. It's only at the surface level. Again, individual wells would be contaminated first, and it would be affected. And they are seeing that again to the southeast of the Chena floodplain. They are seeing some contamination in those areas. So we are monitoring it at those areas. What we know right now is that the North Pole wells are not showing any signs of PFAS contamination.
Any other questions for Danny? Thank you, Danny. Appreciate it. Tricia, would you like to go next, please? Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
I sent out financials. I apologize. I sent them out. I meant to send them out late last week, but I sent them out this afternoon after 5. I did. If you have any questions when you're reviewing them, I'd be more than happy to talk to you about it. Those financials are for July. We finally got caught up on our bank recs, and so we haven't received August in the mail yet. It's only the 3rd, right?
Mhm.
And so as soon as we get that done, I'll send August out for you guys. I also did include a little spreadsheet for you guys tonight, just kind of comparing sales, where sales tax is and where online sales tax was. Last week, I didn't put that on here, but last week we got an additional $10,000 from remote sellers tax folks. And we called and talked to them about it because it wasn't something that we normally get, but apparently they collected more than they were planning to, or more than they budgeted for. And so they sent additional funds to everybody that contract with them. And so our portion was a little over $10,000.
10,000 additional?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's not on this sheet, but
No.
that came in last week. The other things, the yellow piece there is a administrative budget amendment. It's within category. I met with Danny and Melanie a couple weeks ago, and these were the in-between categories that they requested us to move. I went ahead and posted those posted the budget amendment in Tyler. There was a couple other things that we found that were misposted. So we'll do a journal entry to move those expenses. They were not in the right category or right GL. I'm talked with Chief Dutra, and he's got some that he's going to go ahead and give me. I'll report those at the next meeting. And we talked about, at one of our meetings, we talked about the budget workshops. Talked to my Mayor Welch last week, and he wanted to move those to November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd. So the only issue I see with that is we have to send the packet out on the 2nd. So
We can still send out the,
right, but if you have any
no, I won't.
additional things at the workshop, then I won't be.
no, I don't
In
think
that.
we'll.
So
Is there a reason why you are requesting that change? Because October 24th, 25th, 26th has been blocked out for us for months.
I do believe, I don't know for certainty, but I do believe what I'm going to have to do with the Bay Hospital is going to be pushed into that week. That's one reason why. And right now I'm not able to respond to mail for medical reasons. So, and the 1st, 2nd, 3rd also gives us time. Help me, Ms. Tricia, we'll have the last bit of information that comes in either October 31st or November 1st, correct? For the previous month.
for the sales tax.
Sales tax.
Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
we'll have a more refined answer
right.
than we would have had. And it gives us time.
We have to have it on the first meeting of November.
That's
'cause it
right.
goes to 3 meetings.
Right. And the first meeting is November 6th.
6th, I think. Yeah.
Mhm. So we should be able to do it then.
So someone's gonna work on Saturday and Sunday to get the budget ordinance finished because the third, we will be possibly hearing from department heads and not be putting the budget together.
They may have to, but I don't think so. I believe whatever we're having will have already been presented to me. Remember, the budget is primarily my concern to put the budget together. So what we'll do is what we present on November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd will have been already put before me by the department heads. So all we're doing November 1st, 2nd, and 3rd is having a chance to ask questions about it. It won't really change what we present on November 6th, but it may very well change by November the 20th on the 2nd November meeting. Then we're going to have a more clear picture of what we're trying to do.
And lastly, we had a post audit meeting with Altman and Rogers midweek of last week, which they did give us some encouraging words and how we were able to overcome a lot of things based off the conversion. So we have worked with Tyler a little bit more with the Tyler payments issue. And they gave us a person that we can talk with, and they've also given us a different website to go to where everything's on the same website. So it sounds like it's working. They are continuing to meet with us once a week until we feel very confident. And I'm not going to let go of those people until we're ready.
That day, is that Altman Rogers or Tyler?
No, that's Tyler.
Tyler.
So yeah, we talked to Altman and Rogers about the problems that we were having with the payments. So it's just that the batches don't balance out where our previous company Express Bill Pay, we very rarely had a problem. So the morning process to close the cashiering normally took 30 minutes. Now it's taking several hours.
Does Altman and Rogers have?
No, they don't.
They
We're just getting some feedback from them because
How
they
well versed are they in that product?
Altman and Rogers, they're more well versed with Munis, which is another product from Tyler, but they have taken some classes and I mean, I really like working with them. They're a good company and they just tell it like it is. They don't sugarcoat anything.
Good.
So,
Happy if you're happy.
yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank
So
you.
any questions you have?
Any
I'll
questions for Ms. Tricia?
Yes, can you state again when the meeting was going to be for budget?
the budget workshop.
Yep.
1st, 2nd, and 3rd of November, which is the Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
Thank you.
That's 6 PM to 9 PM.
Yes, unless we can do it faster.
Well, normally it's at 5:30 and we have, we provide snacks meal. But if it's at 6, we won't provide that because,
We'll provide, Madam Clerk, you don't have any problem providing meals, do you? So if you want to come at 5:30, there'll be something, and you can take it on the fly too. You don't have to
Okay.
worry about it. Just, you could come as early as 5:30 to get something. Those are full-blown workshop, each one of those days.
right,
So we start out with the administration budget, which would include revenues,
I think we do revenues first, so we
First.
can know what we're dealing with.
what we're dealing
Yeah.
with. And then I don't know who won the
Chad.
did Chad win or did you win? Who's going for, huh?
Oh,
The
yeah,
Police
that's right.
Department won the arm wrestle to go first on Thursday, followed by the fire department. And finally, Danny has the wrap up on Friday.
Right.
And that's everything that he has under him.
Right,
Public
right.
Works, Utilities, Building,
Yeah, Wednesday will be the revenues, admin budget and clerk HR budget.
clerk and HR.
Do you think we'll have a HR deputy clerk by then? Oh, that'd be great.
Absolutely, you heard that.
Okay.
Any questions for Tricia besides what Ms. Clack just asked? I'm looking, I see none. Thank you
you.
for your report. Chief Dutra, you got the block there, partner.
So we have, we've ordered the walls and doors for the project that you council approved. So those are 6 weeks out. That'd be exciting. Get that done. We'll start working on cleaning up that and organizing our a space we've used as a storage space for quite a while. And we did get it's not on here, but I did get a call to company about the ceiling tiles and stuff and getting those redone in most of the building. And I know the council had approved doing the ceiling tiles years ago, but we never got around to getting anybody to get that project done. So we're going to get some estimates this year, maybe, and talk about getting parts of it done this year, maybe, and some next year. So look forward to that. They're from 1980s and they're all in pretty bad shape. So a lot of the grid's broken, and so we're going to hopefully get those repaired. We have a lot of folks on and off vacation, causing a lot of some overtime. Guys working lots of 12-hour shifts, but they're holding it together and covering for each other. So it's pretty cool. I've been called to attend an emergency APSC meeting on Thursday, which is normally not the case. I only do 2 a year, but they have a new ordinance or new regulation they're trying to push through to reduce the age for correctional officers to 18 instead of 21. So they hopefully will increase their recruitments. They did mention a lot of other states that are doing that, didn't specify whether it's successful. So I don't know if it's a good idea or a bad idea, but we'll certainly see. It's coming before the board as a public meeting, so we shall see. I did speak with Representative Prax. I do appreciate him reaching out to me about a complaint from a voting member, and we got it resolved, and he was a very amicable one. I appreciate him talking with me. Don't know what I meant by number 5. I guess I didn't finish my sentence. So I apologize about that.
Out of town on a certain date?
Yeah, I will be out of town. I think that's exactly what it was.
Is that what it is?
Yeah, when I wrote this, I didn't know exactly when because the phone call that occurred after this. So I do apologize for that. But it looks like I'll be out of the office. I already spoke to the mayor about it. Looks like maybe in the end of this month. So for a couple of weeks, but PSA public safety assistant in Lingsworth he's attended the safety fair with me, and I did list here on number 10 all the neat things he's done: the safety fair, the Alice liaison, the schools committee. He's done a meet and greet with the principals and myself. It was really nice. You got to meet all the teachers and principals. It was pretty neat. He's doing the trunk or treat coming up. He did a couple ice cream socials. Did a greeting event at North Pole Elementary, which he of course is familiar with because he did it all the time. It was pretty cool. Kids really like that. Several open houses that we couldn't attend. It just the guys sometimes get to show up to those but not stay. He's working on a school security enhancement opportunities for school for grants. And that kind of entails, it's kind of complicated because he's got a lot of balls to juggle there, but we have a grant available to us. It's a Homeland Security grant every year, and we've knocked out a lot of projects that we're working on. But one we thought about pursuing this year might be, or next year, maybe, or a combination of both, would be security enhancements for our schools inside the city. And that could include anything from door locks to secondary access controls to cameras to whatever it might be. So he's prioritizing those, and he's doing kind of an evaluation with each school with my help. And each school in this district is very unique, even though some of them are identical. They're still very unique. Some have outer door controls that let people into the vestibule, and then they can walk freely into the school. Some control outer access, or inner access, not outer access. Some actually control both, which is great. But then that vestibule is not hardened, which would be ideal. That if they get them into that cage, they realize they're a shooter or somebody that's hostile, they can control their access in that spot, which is really ideal. The ideal way to do that is eyes on. They sometimes buzz them in 60 below. They come into the warm area, and then they can screen and discuss contact with person. So that's kind of the idea there. It's kind of we're throwing a lot of things at him, and he understands this. He's worked with me for years, well, probably a decade on Alice stuff. So him and Lorna are very familiar with what needs, and obviously he's worked in the school. So working close on that project. It's taken a lot of time, but I think it's a worthy effort. Doing social media awareness classes. He's positive picking. He's doing office duties. He's taking some load off the officers, running stuff around and doing things. And he's doing guys read this next week. So I got him involved in that. So yeah, I've got him hopping. And I just spoke with Chief Heineken tonight about, don't forget, this is the public safety assistant. So he also can help the fire department. So to make sure we get together and talk about what that looks like. So pretty important to have him getting out the message and working for as many of us as possible. So I think so far it's a pretty good success. The accreditation process is moving along. We've got all our policies uploaded to their system. We are now vetting the policies against our our processes. Basically, we have to, if we have a policy in there that says we do X, Y, Z, we have to provide proof and attach it to the policy saying we've actually done what we say we're going to do. Or if our policy is not in compliance with a particular national standard, they would then flag that. We have to go in and I have to go in there and modify that, upload it, change it. It's a lot of work, but we'll get there. So just keeping you updated on the process. So stats. Yeah, if you see, you can see on the back page, I double-sided Save Some Trees. There is an uptick in total calls. Looks like we're trending quite a bit upwards. A lot of this, if you can see, is self-initiated. The officers are out there and they're being active and they're doing significant amount of traffic stops, lots of citations. It's, as you all know, you drive around the city, you see it's just nonstop. It's, you know, even though they're doing more than we did last year, the year before, it's still a perpetual problem and it never stops. So they are working hard at it, though. They're trying to knock it out. And you can see by the numbers there. It's certainly reflected in the data. The on the back also, the total department stats for the year over year are up on all those as well. But the front page, you notice there's a huge uptick in obviously the citations, but part one crimes, there's somewhat of a downtick from last year, which is nice because those are the big ones. And then part two crimes, there's very pretty much even there. Nothing spectacular there. Definitely more other admin assignments, which is pretty much any other minor crime that's not listed in this section. DUIs are about 33, 34. I think 34 is my number I come up with. So it's a little higher than I'd like, but not too far out of control, even though there were quite a few arrests last month. So that's all I got.
I have a question, Chief. On Thursday, I'll be at the Civville meeting. And I would imagine Captain Spitzer will be there again. Did you notice because they were telling us way back that they would be up here a week prior through the day to enforce our highways and all for the Labor Day rush. Did you see evidence of them being here? Because I don't drive right now, but my wife took me back and forth a few times. I didn't see any evidence of them being out there on the highway.
I honestly didn't leave much the house this last weekend,
Yeah,
so I don't
didn't
know the
leave
answer
much
to that.
either, but I just didn't see it
Yeah.
when she drove me into town. And
I didn't
coming
hear
and
any
going.
rumblings or anything. So
okay, I'm just curious because they were talking about they were going to be out there in force. So I don't see anything on their blotter where they had to do anything extra. Maybe things where people didn't travel or a lot. I'm not sure. In regard to the one person we have in the academy, how's he doing? Truthfully.
good. Oh, I did miss that part. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have a recruit in the academy doing good, and then our FTO is progressing through the process. So yeah, he's doing good. He's hanging in there. I don't get any daily. I mean, I get daily updates in a broad aspect.
About Temple?
Temple, Sergeant Temple. Yeah,
He's doing fine.
he's moving through the process. Yeah. And then Tyler Nicholson is in the academy. And he's doing good. We don't hear nothing. That's a good thing.
That's a good
I
thing.
don't usually pry into what's going on every day, but you know, he's
I just wondered.
yeah, he's doing good. And I do apologize. I kind of advanced on there's drug take backs coming October 28th. And let's bring your expired medications in if you can on we do 10 to 2. And then the hours, obviously we're doing a big series of at like 3 different locations for family centered services. So we're doing some hours presentations.
Chris will be doing all of that.
I'll be helping him. So yeah, I'll be able to attend those because I'm not leaving so quickly.
And what you're monitoring with the Fairbanks FPD, how's it going in regard to their efforts to put all their money out there on the line? Is it working?
I don't know.
Don't know.
Dupee's in Texas, I guess, and so he's going to come back in. I'll be leaving. So I told him we'll meet maybe in October sometime. So I'll get to give him a hard time.
Okay. Mr. Watts, you have a question, Chief?
So you've been talking about this program that you are looking into about recruiting more high schoolers and kind of get them started on the process. Do you have any other updates on that part?
No, we're talking to Coach Holland about the football players and, you know, getting Chris in the schools and attending events at the school, job fairs and things, but we don't have any. I think the fire department has their project that they're talking about kicking off next year, but we don't have any major events. Of course, we try to stay active, but we have to, they have to go from high school to 21 before we can ever, but we like, hopefully get the message out. Maybe we need to do a better job, but I don't know.
And the other thing is that there was a little bit of a kerfuffle on Facebook earlier about the young man that's missing. And there were some accusations towards the police that North Pole is not doing anything to make our area safer for the youth that's out there. Apparently there's some kind of a party spot that's well known to everybody, and but I believe it's outside the city limits. Am I correct in that?
That's
Supposed to be behind somewhere behind the dike and beyond the high school. I mean, I must say I have no idea where it's at, but it's not something that we would normally patrol since it's supposed to be outside our city limits. Am I correct in that?
Yeah, that particular location they identified is outside the city. The particulars to this case are, lots of rumors online about what's going on. So we did actively participate in this surge, and so.
It was just, I just want to make sure that it doesn't come across to our citizen out here that we don't care about our youth out there. But if it's outside our basic area, that we're not supposed to just go out and start investigating a bunch of stuff that's really not inside the city limits, if I'm correct about that.
Yeah, it's not outside the city. It is outside the city limits, and it's not something we normally would.
So unless you are asked by the troopers, for example, to come assist, it's not something that you would normally do, right?
Correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else for Chief Dutra? Yes, Jeff.
I just wanted to commend your department and especially Sergeant Pagande for his outstanding evidentiary testimony during a DUI hearing from when he worked for the Fairbanks Police Department, and the email that we got from the Assistant District Attorney's Office saying that Judge Seacon stated that it was one of the best DUI investigations he had ever seen in years. So I'm glad that he works for the city of North Pole. You choose well.
Yes.
Thank you I'll pass that on.
I remember being jury foreman for young prosecutor Ben Seacon's first DUI case. And it was his birthday, so I still know his birthday when it is.
I was also present on the borough attorney's first DUI trial.
Thank you, Chief. Appreciate it. It was
Thank
going
you.
on 8 o'clock. Everybody still with us here?
Yep.
Thanks.
It's nap time.
Let's move on here to the next thing. So communications from our clerk is next. Madam Clerk.
All right. All right, good evening, you guys. So let's see. So I have a little update on the open positions that we have. We have received 15 applications for the HR/deputy city clerk.
How many?
15
15.
and
15.
5 applications for the city clerk. So just a reminder, the positions close tomorrow. So probably Wednesday, I'll get those resumes together and send them out to Mrs. Clack, Mr. Jacobson, and Mr. Skips, who are all on that hiring committee with me. And we're going to meet on Friday to talk about the interview questions and go over the applications so that I can get people called so that they can come in for interviews that following week. So that reminds me that the following week, Tuesday and Wednesday, we are doing interviews. I will provide dinner, so let me know if you guys have any dietary restrictions. And get here as early as possible before 6 if you want to have a chance to eat before we, start talking. Let's see, I've been working on training stuff for our new incoming people. I've been calling it, you're a city clerk, now what? And then last week I attended a couple of days of the Alaska Defense Forum, got some super great info about housing, like directly from the source. That was super fun. And then Ms. Clack and I went on the tour of Eielson and Wainwright on Thursday, and that was a lot of fun. And I did have a couple of pictures to show you guys. My mouse wants to work.
Did y'all fly?
No.
No.
No, we just got a chance to kind of poke around at them and take some pictures and just kind of look at them and talk to the pilots and stuff. It was a lot of fun. All right, and that's all I have.
Any questions for the clerk?
Just the confirmation on the 8th, we are meeting here at 1 PM
On Friday, correct?
on Friday.
Mhm.
You're gonna be able to make it at 1? Okay,
What happens on the 8th at 1 PM again?
we're gonna review the applications and
applications, okay,
forward
sure.
the top candidates for us
candidates,
to consider
sure.
on interviews.
I won't be here in that time frame with our attorney then. I don't think I'll be back in time.
Sounds like we have a stack to go through.
Yeah.
20.
15 and 5, I would say so. Lots of luck. What's next? Let's see. Do we have a borough representative report?
It was Mr. Keller. I had sent out his comments to the council previous to the meeting. And I'm sure if we have any questions, we can ask him next time.
Next time, okay. And I will say that there was a last minute meeting of the borough on Thursday. I think it lasted 7 minutes. I think Mayor Ward can confirm that too. They had a sewerage problem at Helms Borough Building, and that kind of pushed people paying their property taxes down the road. So I think they've extended property taxes are due tomorrow, correct, at 5 PM? Instead of, yeah. Yeah, I wasn't there either, but I heard about it. Mrs. Welch, you were there.
I was not there, but I did speak
He's-
to the
Presiding
to
officer.
presiding officer, and he said they pushed it down one day. They figured there were so many other ways that people could actually pay their taxes that in person did not absolutely have to be.
Thank you.
So
So that closes out item 9. I didn't skip any department heads, so we go on. There are no ongoing projects report. Is that correct? Madam Clerk?
Correct.
Next time we meet, I will give you an update on the combined heat and power. Unfinished business. Well, it's actually new business now that we've reclassified it. So new business. So we have ordinance 2311, an ordinance of the city of North Pole amending Title II, Chapter 36, Personnel Systems, found on pages 22 and 24. Madam Clerk, do you want to address that?
So this is the code change that Renee Broker wrote for us, and it's just changing our code a little bit to accommodate WorkShield, which is this new program that we're going to be contracting with as an avenue for our employees to file a complaint. So they're going to be filing it with WorkShield as opposed to an HR person on site. WorkShield is going to receive that complaint. They're going to do the investigation, and then they're going to contact us with their with what they've come up with, and then we can decide on what we're going to do with it from there. Sorry.
Any more to this that we need to discuss at this juncture? If not, is anyone in the public wishing to give testimony or ask questions? Madam Clerk?
Not that I know of.
Okay, no one there, so public comment is closed. So if I can have someone take item A there and introduce that ordinance 2311.
Move to introduce and advance ordinance 2023-11, an ordinance of the city of North Pole amending Title II, Chapter 36 Personnel System.
Second.
Second by Clack. So motion made by Jacobson, second by Clack. Any discussion necessary? Did you raise your hand? Thank you.
Yes,
What's your discussions?
I just want to reassure employees that this is not circumventing any of their due process that's in the personnel code. It basically just facilitates that there will be consistency in how any complaints or grievances are handled during this transition period. the department head and other supervisors will be in the driver's seat as far as the recommendations that come back from WorkShield to see if you are in agreement with that and if they're appropriate. But this just is kind of a bridge until we get people up to speed on knowing our personnel code and the whole process, because there's very specific deadlines and steps that have to be followed. And so this kind of takes the pressure off of that new person, and there is just more consistency in following our code. So please, department heads, let your employees know that this is an enhancement and consistency for a bridge period of time.
Thank you, Mr. Hicks. Ms. Welch?
I think we discussed the fact that we need to make a change in on line 80, where it says 5 days, that we want to say that was 5 business days after the employee was notified that they could actually do a appeal.
Their motion.
So I would like to make a motion to insert the word on line 80, where it says the 5, and then in between 5 and days, say put business.
Second.
So there's a motion to insert between the word 5 and days business, to call it 5 business days. Motion made by Ms. Welch, seconded by Mr. Jacobson. Any other amendments that need to be made, or any other questions or comments? Excuse me? I will when I make sure that no one has them. Madam Clerk, would you call the question?
Sure. Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Does anyone wish to change their vote? I see none, so that now goes to forwarded to our next meeting.
No, we have to go back to the amendment.
Oh, yes, we have to go back to the original now that we've amended it. We're just approving the motion. That's right, the amendment. Thank you for keeping me on track. So
Okay.
now, as to the new ordinance as amended, would you have any more comments on that? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call a question.
Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone wish to change your vote? I don't see no changes. So now this will be forwarded to our next meeting for the final passage at October 20th. Is that when it'll be? Whenever that is. Thank you. Item B, resolution 2313 for the city of North Pole to authorize an agreement between the city of North Pole, the Fairbanks North Star Borough, and the city of Fairbanks to jointly provide for economic development. If you'll bring up pages 25 through 26, we have that there. And we have with us to speak to that tonight, the mayor of the Fairbanks North Star Borough, former mayor of the city, former councilman, and all those other wonderful things, Mr. Bryce Ward. Mayor Ward, please come forward and tell us what you think here.
I'm so glad to have you here.
Good to see you. Thank you, council and mayor, for having me here to talk about this resolution. So this is, there was a predecessor to this, I think it was mentioned in the committee, the whole by Mayor Welch, that was originally agreed to. It was actually Mayor Jacobson at the time, Mayor Whitaker, and I think Mayor Sturl in the city of Fairbanks to have a joint powers agreement, essentially is what it is. It was brought to my attention earlier this year by the borough attorney that was never legitimately approved according to the borough. One, because the assembly didn't approve it. And it was apparently needed to have authorization from the assembly. And then I guess conversely, the councils, there was no proof of adoption by the councils either. So I guess myself and Ms. Smart out of my office took it upon ourselves to dive into the agreement and find out some more information as to the origins and what came about. And it was really enlightening to learn about the statute change that actually put this in place. I believe the cities and the borough advocated for that. And what it does is it's a joint powers agreement. So there's only a handful of things that are jointly allowed to be exercised by both the borough and the city cooperatively. And this is one of them through statute if there's an agreement. So the Fairbanks North Star Borough is a second-class borough, exercises economic development authority in the areas outside of the cities. If we were to go through a normal kind of transfer of powers agreement like we do for a number of different things, schools, parks, and whatnot, then the borough would have to take on the full responsibility and the city would not be able to exercise it. So back in 2003, it appears the legislature approved this change in statute, which would allow for both the city and the borough to jointly provide these services within their boundaries. And the big thing for the borough, being a second-class borough that only can exercise its powers in the unorganized, in the areas outside of the cities of Fairbanks and North Pole, is that you can spend general fund dollars on that if you have this agreement in place. About 3 years ago, we changed how the borough currently does economic development. It was historically funded through a mix of, I guess originally it was all non-area-wide funds. There was then a mix of area-wide and general funds. And then with my administration, we just said, you know what, this is really an area-wide function that we provide. And so they're fully funded through the general fund at this time. This agreement allows us to do that officially. And so I would ask that the council take this into consideration. It's, I would say, something that we've been doing in practice for almost 2 decades now. But this definitely puts it on the books that it's gone through its formal process. And I think there's a great benefit to the city too. What the borough does bring is we bring our ability to do research into the economics of Fairbanks. We do that through the Community Quarterly. We've also supported Fairbanks Economic Development Corporation through our economic development funds. Explore Fairbanks is also a component of that. All of those funds are collected through bed tax dollars. But we do a number of these things to support economic development that really doesn't know a boundary, if you will, a geographic or a governmental boundary. So I think there's much to be benefited from the cities as there is the borough as we do this collaboratively together. One of the projects that we're working on right now is with the University of Alaska Fairbanks to do cost burden analysis.
Cost what analysis?
Cost burden analysis. Where we look at how much in the different census districts within the borough, how much is it that each of our households is paying for energy? And then as we talk about projects like the interior gas utility expansion of the gas lines, it's able to give us the data that we need to support maybe development in areas of the borough where there's a higher cost burden than others. And so as we talk about some of the initiatives that are coming out through the EPA, the Justice 40, Chief Administrator Reagan was just here talking about this last week. That type of information gives us the ability to understand where are those touch points, where are those pinch points in our economy, and then how can we best put our resources and maybe grant applications together to help support the gas utility and the community as a whole. So all in all, there's not a cost associated with this for the city of North Pole, but it does allow us to be able to continue to jointly do these things between both the borough and the city.
Let me ask you, I'm going to try to be objective in this question. So don't try to read anything into it, but if you were sitting on this side of the aisle over here, do you see any downside to it?
I see absolutely no downside.
Do you
I mean, honestly, I really don't. There's only, I think, the city stands to benefit because what that means is the borough's dollars, your taxpayer dollars, can be spent within the city or outside the city. There's not a need to parse those out like there would be if they were separate funding sources. If we truly use non-area-wide funds to support economic development, then you would only be able to see your non-area-wide funds be used in areas outside the cities.
Okay. So let me go a little further. I always read the quarterly when Catherine Dodge used to do it. I mean, I've always read it for years and years and years, long before I was mayor. So I kind of like hang on to that report. It means a lot to me. It shows us trends. It shows us whether we're making any progress, any headway, if we're really making any true economic development. Would it include if we wanted to say different groups have come to me that want to enhance our parks, and we're talking with a company right now about that, would we be able to collaborate with the borough and put in something that would be from our coffers towards those parks. Would that be allowed under this?
This isn't a parks power, so I believe the city has actually a separate agreement with the borough
Yeah, we
for
do.
exercising park authority, which that would most likely fall under.
But aren't those parks identified by nomenclature by their name?
Yes, the ones in North Polo.
Yeah,
Correct.
are they like the new one that has yet to be named? Would that be
I'm not
down at
familiar with the,
Brookside Park, the one on Ainley property?
at this point, that's just vacant land. So there's been no development plan for that. But
Just
if
trying
the
to-
city were to enter into an agreement with the borough,
Yes.
there could be, the city could certainly exercise that authority.
Okay, good. I want to know that. So one last thing too, and take it for what it's worth, but there's a level of consternation that I have. And that is when we look at a movement, say, to take what had been City of North Pole wide, to have somebody on the plotting planning commission and now cast it out there for the whole area for the 99705. Does that not in some ways take away something that would be strictly provincial for this city only, in your opinion? Know what I mean?
I could understand that being a consideration. However, that seat was unfilled for close to 5 years. So
Well, when I came on board, it was still filled and it
Right.
left, so it hasn't been 5 years. It's been less than 4. And when we had someone to fill it, something happened that got in the way there. And it has to do with APOC and something that happened internally that we don't need to discuss. And so at the last minute, and it took me almost a year to get that person to get that far. So that kind of answers it. Then we have somebody who might be sitting in the audience tonight who wanted to try to fill it, but didn't have the requisite year. I can understand why you might want to have a area wide. But I'm not sure if it's to the best interest of the city to say that area wide represents the city of North Pole's needs when we can find, I know why you want to do it. I think I know why I'd want to do it too. It's getting harder and harder to find people who want to do something like that in the first place. To sit on that panel.
understand it's a little off topic from this item right now, but that was approved by the assembly last Thursday.
Yeah. I know.
And it does have the requirement that the city provide a list or provide a recommendation to the borough for that particular seat.
Right.
In my time sitting in your chair,
Mhm.
that was actually one of the big complaints that we got, was that it had to be a city resident.
Yeah.
There was a number of business owners who felt that they could still represent the city in their interest and the city's interest well in the planning commission,
I know.
but
some
they
of
weren't
the-
city residents. So
Yeah,
this
they
would
weren't city
open it up to those individuals.
Sure.
And it still comes with a recommendation from the city to make sure the city's interest is represented.
But sometimes we get mixed messages about where we fit in as a city by certain things I wish I didn't have to know that have been brought to my attention in the most curious way. I won't go any further, but someone on the assembly telling me what's really going on in the background. So this idea of limiting us to what we can talk about, debate about, present, whatever, really should cause us some level of concern. You might be aware of that too. But it seems, I know it seems off topic, but it sort of like goes together in my mind for whatever reason, just so you'll know. And I'll let it go at that unless you want to expand on it any further.
So your previous question, you asked if there was a downside.
Yeah.
And I did think of one potential downside. Because we are using area-wide funds to fund economic development, essentially city residents would be paying twice.
Yeah.
So I would say it's a very, very, very small portion. And because there's both the city and the borough are exercising that power, it means that they're collected by both city residents and your borough taxes.
taxes,
So
I see.
both pieces of that. Again, I think it's a very inconsequential number as in pertaining to the entire overall amount that folks are paying. I do think that there's still a benefit to the city providing that,
You too.
exercising that power in conjunction with the borough. But if there was to be a downside, I would say that could potentially be the downside, is that city residents such as myself and yourself
Mhm.
would be essentially paying twice for that.
Sure. Any questions for the mayor while we have him here?
Yeah, the question that would be made then, if we went with this code or whatever. And hearing that the downside would be paying twice, aren't we already doing that presently, even though we did not have anything in play?
Correct.
Okay, so even though that would be the downside, people were already doing that, but just not knowledgeable that it was being done.
Well, the agreements have been in place since 2004. So the issue at play when this came to my attention was that they didn't go through the formal adoption process of the legislative bodies. So that's what we're hoping to rectify. And then we're also more specific with this agreement on what the powers that will be exercised will be. So the thought is that it would be actually more transparent and give a good record of what has been done and what we intend to do for the future.
And if we vote yes for this tonight, this passes tonight because it's a resolution, just so that everyone will keep that in mind. Any other questions while we have? Any concerns?
So I'm just intrigued by the comment that we're paying for it twice, because on our borough property taxes, there is I think it's either non-area wide or area wide economic development tax. Correct?
If you're outside the cities. So if you own property in the borough, outside the cities, then there used to be a mill levy for area-wide economic development. About 3 years ago, we wiped that line and moved it all into the general fund, meaning that both city residents and then borough residents outside the cities effectively pay for it in the general government section of your mill rate.
How is it that the city residents are paying for it twice? Because we don't have on our revenues a tax for economic development on our.
Good question. So as the city is a home rule city, the city has the ability to exercise that power. So whether it be through conversations the mayor has or assembly member or council members or staff, the city inherently exercises some of those powers. They may not be specially spelled out in a position, but it's paid for through the general government of the city's operating budget.
Right. So it's not like we're having an extra burden. It just says if there's an economic project that the city wants to do within our corporate boundaries, we can pay for it.
Exactly.
But it's not really double payment.
Maybe consider that by some.
But we would certainly encourage the more economic development projects coming from borough general funds be inside the city limits.
Understood.
Anything else? Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
you.
Appreciate you coming tonight. Thanks for sticking with us this long. Is anyone in the comment world, citizens wanting to comment, Madam Clerk?
Not that I'm aware of.
So citizens' comments on resolution number 2313 are closed. So would someone like to introduce this resolution?
Move to introduce and adopt resolution 2313.
There's a motion,
Second.
seconded by Welch. So Jacobson made the motion, seconded by Welch. Is there any further discussion necessary? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, call the question.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes.
Mrs. Clack,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Does anyone wish to change their vote on the issue? Seeing none, show that resolution 2313 was unanimous 5-0. Then we come finally to item C, the ballot proposition request to our council, pages 27 and 28. If you'll put that up, Madam Clerk, and to speak to that, our Director of City Services, Mr. Danny Wallace. And we're going to pages 27 and 28.
We have two propositions that we are bringing in the upcoming election on October 3rd. What we're asking here is to send a notice to all city residents about the proposition, because all city residents will have the ability to vote on this. And as shown on the screen, this is what it will look like. It'll talk about, again, the front side will have Proposition 1 and Proposition 2, the snapshots, and referring them to the website. And then on the back side, you'll see the explanation of the two. again, and even with this, there may be questions. So we'll refer them to my office, or as we've given out to each of the council members, there are some additional information that's out there. Again, the bottom line is that Proposition 1 talks about a $1.5 million forgivable loan. It's administered through the ADEC, but it's from federal funds. If we do have projects to include soil remediation, to include monitoring, to include anything involving PFAS within city limits, we will be able to use those funds for it. Again, it's $1.5 million out of that fund. It is 100% forgivable. Again, it's the rules with the federal funds that it's set up that way. But if we use it for the right purposes, it will be forgivable. Proposition 2 gets to the planning and design of a solution to our water main. Again, our water mains, as explained on that back page, our water mains it's a part of our infrastructure that's been with us since the 70s and 80s. They are deteriorating. They are sort of a critical part of our infrastructure. It feeds all of the water systems that go out, whether it's to the northern expansion, to Moose Creek within the city core, and all the citizens that get water within the city. This intends to make a plan to address this. It starts things off as far as dealing with an engineering firm to design this. The $653,000 will be a loan, and there is a plan to pay for this. It will not increase sales taxes. It will not use property taxes. It will utilize that enterprise fund to pay back the loan. And we do have funds set aside for this. We collect funds as part of the water bills each month to support these types of infrastructure improvements. So this is what this is about, and I'll entertain any questions from the council.
I'd just like to say that seems like we have history. I wasn't even aware of it, that we identified some of that line in 2008. I became quite aware of it when it started to fail in 2021. But behind the Cary Lane here, the police department, all the way down to the apartments on Snowman Lane. And so when we pull some of that up, and if you want to see what it looks like, you may certainly walk into Mr. Danny Wallace's office and see some of it. But I couldn't let it continue to look like that, knowing that a lot of it may have been damaged when it was put in 52 years ago. So that thin pipe is pretty darn thin. And if it's an indicator where we're at, it's going to cost a whole heck of a lot more than this eventually to replace it. What's the latest that we have? Is it 21 million?
To replace the entire
system?
City water system, the distribution system is about 20, the estimates are about $28 million. So
28 now.
$28 million. This plan will get at the core of the city and look at that. Again, and that'll be a $5 to $6 million project. Again, the $653,000 will support the planning efforts, and it'll allow us to apply for grants. It'll allow us to get off the ground with this project, and the city can decide, and we can decide the best way forward after we come up with the plan.
I just wanted to line that out so that people know that we're paying attention to it here. Any questions for Danny? Mr. Jacobson, please.
So what is our backup plan in case there's a major break and water's not flowing anymore?
I'll tell you that certainly that's a difficult proposition, and again we do have and again Tricia has the exact number, but we do have about between $900,000 and $1 million in FFR reserves that we could tap into to do immediate fixes on significant issues. If the entire system failed, certainly we would be in a difficult position. But what we've been doing right now is it's been Band-Aids in spot areas. Again, North Pole, Hotel North Pole recently had a water break behind there. They'll put a Band-Aid on those particular areas. Our water folks are very good at doing that. If there was a larger failure that required significant system changes to the system, we do have those funds to tap into. We would probably come back to the council for emergency funds to do stuff. The only thing is that right now our system is manageable, but we do see this as an enduring problem. We don't see right now that the system's going to fail within the next few months. But we do see that this continues to degrade and it needs attention. So, but to answer your question, if we had a catastrophic failure, we would tap into those funds. We would use the current things we have at hand. We are very adept at getting into and identifying problems and identifying leaks where they're at.
Should we be considering a system of storage tanks and water truck deliveries? Something along those lines to see if there's grants available to have that kind of a backup plan to be able to provide water to neighborhoods that for a length of time would not have water, potable water.
And that certainly would be something that we would look at, but believe it or not, and again, I'm not making this up. On my calendar tomorrow morning, we have a infrastructure strategic plan meeting between myself and the Public Works and the water utilities, because I do think a longer look at what the needs of the city is very important. And we just were kind of waiting for summer things to settle down before we started doing that. So a longer term look at what we need to do, and certainly the solutions that you just spoke about, Mr. Jacobson, those are things that we definitely would need to rely on. But maybe an emergency action plan for a catastrophic failure would be something that we would look at. Again, there's been other cities in in interior Alaska that have gone through catastrophic failures. I mean, just to the south of us, I think Clear went through one where they had water contamination, and those are very tough things to recover from. So what you just described may be something that we look at. I might talk to the Public Works supervisor for the city of Fairbanks about some suggestions for some of those things.
Well,
So
September is always considered preparedness month. And I think it would be a meaningful message for our residents that as part of your preparation, it's always to make sure that you have food and water and fuel and supplies to last you in case there's an earthquake or disruption in supply lines. But we should perhaps emphasize storage of water so that you could have water to drink, cook with, flush your toilets with. It doesn't necessarily, to flush your toilets, it doesn't have to be potable, but
right.
You need water. So those are just little simple things that added up could make a real difference if people really make an effort to, as part of their preparation for living in an Arctic environment, that they make sure that they have enough water for their family. Government can't do it all by itself.
Yeah. That's the one thing I'd like to add is we probably should take an even harder look at the FRR rate. Even though it's nths of a penny per 1,000 gallons, it may need to be boosted up because it's just not going to mark time. It's not going to hold time with what we need to do if something catastrophic happens. That's why I had that pipe sitting on that shelf to be a constant reminder of what
That's the FFR rate.
facility repair replace rate.
Yep.
Yeah, and at one time we didn't have it so much for residential. We had it for industrial, commercial. Now we have it for residential. And is it 1.3 or 1.6 cents per 1,000 gallons right now?
I had to go back to
Yeah,
the bills,
something
but
like
it's
that. Very
it's very
small amount.
tiny.
Very small. We may need to think about that. So,
Yeah.
and it'll take forever to catch up. At least we can be prepared in the future. Any more to discuss? Any more questions for Danny?
Question on that.
Yes.
The grants that we were using to help that you were investigating, will they be part of this situation that we're talking about? How are we coming with that?
We are continuing to apply for grants. There was a stormwater grant that we received, and we did have a stormwater study that was done. And again, that's not quite related to this. That's really so far, that's the only successful grant application that we've done. And we've gotten grant monies. We are continuing to submit for this. There was a and I don't know what the acronym means, but there's a grant called Protect, PROTECT, that gets at area-wide water issues, and we are using that also for these design funds. So we are continuing to pursue additional monies. The challenge is that every community in Alaska has water system aging issues, because a lot of it, again, certain times when money was flowed more freely, they were able to put in these water systems, and now they're all aging out. In the 70s and 80s, of course, is when the one in the North Pole was put in. So we're continuing to look at grants and options. We do have a couple that are actually that have been submitted and that are pending, but we have not gotten any grant support for this yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, so somebody moved their hand now. So thank you, Danny, for that feedback. And but this isn't an ordinance or a resolution. It's something we have to give him the green light. I will say that some of the things I see that were coming to us through the mail, some of it got to me past its deadline. So I know we need to move on this to get it in the mail on time. The recent survey that was done, it didn't get to everybody on time. So there's lots of things that the mail's pretty slow about getting out. Was anybody would like to introduce the approval of this ballot proposition being mailed? This request to the council?
Move to approve the permission to mail this out to the voters.
Second.
Hey, there's a motion by Welch, seconded by Clack to go ahead and get this in the mail. Sooner the better, and that's to advanced printing, I believe. And is there any discussion on it? Seeing no further discussion, or do you have more?
Is this mailing going to be like a postcard, or is it going to be an envelope with a letter inside with the ballot? I think this is a great idea to inform the public, and also thank you for the talking points so that as we are approached about why we're doing this,
Yes.
we have some facts to share. So thank you very much.
Madam Clerk, call the question, please.
Okay, Mrs. Clark,
Yes.
Mr. Skips,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobson,
Yes.
Mrs. Welch,
Yes,
Mr. Mayor.
Yes. Anyone changing the vote? Seeing none, we will go ahead and mail out these ballot propositions to our community. We come to the final council comments. Who goes first, Madam Clerk?
Mr. Skips,
I have nothing at this time.
thank you. Mrs. Clark,
I would like to add to our trip that we had with the Army Defense Forum. It was very informative. Having the opportunity of being out at Eielson and looking at the planes and talking with a few people on our lunch, finding out that they would like to have more employees out there and more people in their daycare facility. So they would like for us to be able, as a public and a community, to work on that. One suggestion that was brought up was transportation, trying to do transportation from Fairbanks out to Eielson to help them to transport some of the people out there through the winter that are scared to drive. So anybody that's interested in trying to take on that would be very helpful. So that was one of the things that I've learned while I was out, and I had a very good time.
Thank you, Ms. Clack.
all right, thank you. Mrs. Welch.
all right, so as my usual thing is about safety for our youth, I will bring up the fact that right now, as we're speaking, we're missing a young man named Talon. And I think today was his birthday, his 18th birthday. So I guess he's more or less an adult today. But he hasn't been seen for 48 hours or something like that, being out in North Pole in a spot apparently where teenagers seem to hang out off the dike somewhere behind the high school. And the big discussion on Facebook on that. Most of all, I think it got into a contest between whether North Pole Police should be responding to stuff and make it safer out there. That area is outside the city limits, I'm sure for a reason. The children, the youth that gather out there to participate in things that police probably should not be around, according to them. They want to, I know there's underage drinking going on, sometimes drugs, stuff like that out there. So in this case, apparently they were told the police was coming, and this young man took off into the woods to avoid being challenged by the police. He hasn't been seen since. That's just kind of what I hear from online. But I want to make sure that all our citizens know there that our police department is very worried about the safety and the health and well-being of our youth, and that they do a lot of work to challenge anything that would harm our youth in this case. And lastly, I would like to offer our prayers, and I think maybe even the whole council's prayer for this young man to come back in health and good condition to his family. And if that's not the case, at least that we get some kind of closure on this. So, but I can tell you that the North Pole Police did participate in the search for this young man. So they were not totally out there. So anybody who knows anything about where Talon is at, please contact the police, the troopers, or his parents. You can find them on Facebook. And if Talon is out there listening somehow or another, please make sure you make contact with your family and let them know you're okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson.
Thank you. It's been quite enjoyable having 3 North Pole mayors in the room for tonight's meeting. A lot of history between all our terms here in North Pole and the growing pains that we've had. So thank you, Mayor Ward, for being here tonight for the entire meeting and not skipping out after you shared your comments. I did want to pass out to the council, and though I'll just bring that over. Okay. I asked for this picture of the Mancho Mine Black Gold monster truck. As a council, we are very united in saying that this is not the best use of our main arterial roads. And when you see the size of this truck, this is unprecedented. It's one thing to have these pass maybe once or twice a day, but when you're talking about 12, 15 minutes, one being after the other, one direction or the other, it's going to change our way of life. And I'm just very concerned for the safety of all those who rely on the Richardson Highway, the Steese Highway. I've even heard rumor that they can't go over the Chena Hot Springs overpass, so they're going to go on the off ramp and on ramp and around the roundabout to bypass the weight restriction. So I'm sure the folks at Chena Hot Springs Road will be really happy to wait for this. So I'm all about mining development, but this is very scary. Mayor, I know you're a member of the Knights of the Columbus and are Catholic, so I was going through some memorabilia that I had in store. So here is the Daily News Miner when the Pope came to Fairbanks and met with President Reagan at the Fairbanks airport.
Back from May Day, 84.
So I thought you would enjoy reading this and sharing this
I will. Thank you.
with your
We'll put it in
friends
our
at
archive.
church.
I appreciate that.
And with that, I just encourage everybody to have a safe month. And again, this is the time to prepare for winter. So we start packing things up, putting things away, and making sure that things are not out there where snow plows can snag them, and that you have secured your home so that there's no loss of heat and excessive use of energy. I just want to say for all those who are still not on natural gas, I'm on natural gas, and my entire natural gas bill for the summer months it's about $45 a month to heat my home, which I don't use very much of, but that $45 natural gas bill has significantly cut my electric bill, because in the summer, GVA raises its rates. And guess what? Your hot water heaters use a lot of electricity, and I don't have to do that anymore because natural gas pays for it. So just encouraging you, it's a wise investment. That's all my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you very much. Well, so I got baptized back into service here. So first, before I talk about what I was doing, thank you, worthy pro tem, for filling in my absence, and I hope to keep that to the minimal. But I did get back in time. I can't even remember what I did last Monday to any great extent, but I know what I did after that. Tuesday and Wednesday, I was at the 3rd Alaska Defense Forum. This is the best one we've had yet. It's a lot of good hard work that went into that. Mostly the borough. Bryce will tell you that. A lot of good people that came around from all the different entities and made it a good success. If I can name them, I would, but Doyon was one that was a good sponsor, and we had people from Explore Fairbanks. We had people from all over the Chamber of Commerce. We had a lot of people involved. But I met a lot of people, and it was important, the people behind the scenes that I got to meet. And one person I'll mention mostly is from the Army. I met him. I thought Ivan Bolden was an important person to meet, from what we call Chief of Army Partnerships for Joint Service Partnership Committee. And he introduced me to who he calls Mr. Alaska. I can't remember Joe's name right now, his last name, but I have his card. But that's who he wants me to go through when we look at partnerships we could have with the Army for what we're trying to do in this city. At the same time, I met Colonel Rick Hearn, and he's the community partner for the United States Air Force. He's from the Pentagon. And then I met his big boss for the second time in my life, Dr. Robbie Chauderet. I met him up in the Borough building on the day that we mentioned about the micronuclear reactor. We met before the Scheibel Auditorium, but I reminded him that he had an IOU to me. And that was that we were going to develop a community partnership within 60 days, and the clock was running out. He said, I did not forget that. As a matter of fact, I knew I would see you here. So he came prepared. He said, let's quit moving at the speed of government. Let's get it up and going. He's using a model that he did at Edwards Air Force Base. And so he wants me to come sooner than later to sit at the table and put together what it is I'm trying to do, what I'd like to see the Air Force do as a partnership with this city for a public-private public partnership. So I have him and Colonel Hearn to deal with, but while I'm in the Pentagon, I might as well go to the Army side and see Ivan Bolton and whoever else that can help us to do the same thing. You know, we'll get on the same page together. You'll be hearing more about the combined heat and power as we start to increase. You may have heard me talking to the person who will be running the IGU here, Elena. She knows Brent Sheets that I've been working with for almost 3 years now. And so she knows we're going to come to her to try to get best thing I can call it an industrial rate to use natural gas for our combined heat and power, which then would lead me to go to Golden Valley Electric to get a power purchase agreement so we can have some street cred. So that's right on the cusp of happening within 2 weeks, a power purchase agreement. I'm trying to choreograph things so that they're in place in time for the new council when it comes into being in October, so that they're all up to speed on it too. So that's taking up a little bit more time than I wanted it to, but I think I always look at the silver lining in the cloud when things don't always happen. And what Dr. Chauderet calls the speed of government. It's sometimes a little slower than you want it to be, but I think there's a good reason for it. So with that, I will say time to call for adjournment.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
Thank you. We are adjourned at 8:50. Thank you for coming. Bryce, thank you, partner.